What's going on, advocates? Welcome back to another edition of the Black Mental Health Podcast. I'm your host, Reg. Joined today with me is a special guest. All my guests are special because they are contributing to the world in their own special way. Um, I don't like to miss credentials, Chris, so I'll let you introduce yourself and some of the work you do to the people.
Hey, what's going on? First of all, I want to thank you, Reginald, for having me. I was looking, man. I was listening to your podcast episodes, and I said, man, this brother's been through some of the same stuff I've been through, and your podcast is just really essential in the Black community, man. So I appreciate that. Thanks for having me. My name is Chris Scott. I am my day job, 9 to 5. I am a senior electrical and automotive engineer for the Department of Defense. I've worked in high performance computers. I've built and designed robots that have went over the war and saved soldiers' lives. And also, I am an author. I'm a professional speaker, and I own a company called Positive Thought Solutions, which I do different seminars and trainings and keynote speeches for colleges and corporations. They bring me in to speak on resilience, mindset, leadership, and different topics of that matter. In addition, I own an e-commerce apparel brand called I'm Black and, which is a brand that was birthed out of the huge social justice movement that happened in 2020, in addition to my own personal experiences. And it's specifically focused on Black empowerment and positivity. You know, I take the different stigmas and stereotypes about the Black community and I turn it into positive, empowering apparel. Like, for instance, you know, the myth is Black men are not good fathers, right? They're absentee fathers. So I got a shirt that says I'm Black and a great father, right? To kind of put those words and that message on shirts so people can see it and they can take that in, right? And so I'm just trying to break down these stereotypes and stigmas, you know, one shirt at a time in the Black community.
Nah, thanks for that. And I want to slow walk it back into all these different elements. How did you get into the computer engineering? Like they usually say, like you said, it was stigma that we are not in that field, and it's a huge separation of like Black men or just Black people in those fields. How did you even get involved in that?
That's true. And you know what? Matter of fact, yearly, less than 6% of degrees are awarded to Black people in engineering. And for me, I was that kid who enjoyed, you know, putting stuff together. I enjoyed learning how things worked. Specifically, I wanted to know how computers work, how TVs work, how radios work. And I have some really good parents. And even though they weren't into that type of thing, my dad, my mom, they researched on how they can get me into those type of activities. So they got me into activities like the Detroit area pre-college engineering program, where I got a chance to spark my interest and work in engineering, work with other senior engineers and things like that. And I just got really interested. I said, yeah, this is definitely something I wanted to do. And I've always been really, really good at math and science as well. So with that and a love for learning how things work and two great parents that put me into those activities after school and on the weekends that allowed me to spark that interest is what got me involved in it.
Yeah, I'm in that stage right now with my oldest son who's 9, and trying to identify the activities that he find interest in, so that way I can kind of cultivate and develop it and nurture it because I know how important it is. Before when I was a father, I'm like, all right, he's gonna do everything that I wanted him to do and do all of these different things. We gonna play football, or I didn't get a chance to do. Yeah, I wish my dad was there to help me play football, all these different things, and it's like, well, he has his own journey that he wants to, go into. And so now I'm redefining and relearning him as a human being and what he wants out of the world. So I shout out to your parents for doing that for you and making sure you was able to capitalize off of that. I seen from your bio you grew up in Detroit, man. How was that experience? The D tough, man. I'm in Philly, but it's a hood in every city. So let me know about your upbringing in Detroit.
That's right, man. Actually, I love the city, man. I'm blessed that I grew up in a two-parent household, two parents who worked in the factory, man, took very good care of the family. So I've actually had a really good experience growing up in Detroit. You know, I had issues early on, hanging out with the wrong crowd, getting involved in some stuff I shouldn't got involved with, man. But I was able to, over time, disconnect from that toxicity and actually move on in my life, man. But I had a really good experience living and growing up in Detroit. I must admit that as a result of that and just being Black, period, there weren't as many opportunities in some other areas of Michigan, right? And with me living in Detroit, going outside in the suburbs, I had issues with, police and, being told I fit the description. I don't know how many times of robberies and things like that. But overall, I have to say my experience was very good, very positive. I had a very good community, good friends and family, and I love the city, man.
I'm in this phase now where well, I just transitioned from the phase of like, all right, everything that played into my upbringing that was wrong, and disengaging from it because it caused certain traumas that in my life that I have to repair. But now I feel like there's a movement with mental health, and there's a movement with conversation around mental health, but we also are disregarding a lot of the good that came from growing up in certain environments. You named a few of them: community. You had parents, two had parents in the household, and that was able to do certain things for you. Like you was able to break some of these or gain value from some of these things as well. The question that I have, because you said breaking away from the toxicity, and you developed a brand that breaks away from that. And if those who are looking at it on YouTube, this is the brand, this is the website, so you guys can check it out and get some of it. How do what was the question? How do we begin to break away? Like, what was that transitional moment for you where you said, like, I got mixed up, I got in the wrong? Like, what was that transition? Because some of us are still in that right now. Not myself, like, I'm still, being able to have conversations like this. But what do you say to that young Chris that's in that transitional moment, but is falling to some of those norms of, all right, maybe I'm not the most powerful father. Maybe I don't read books. Maybe I don't do X, Y, and Z. And I'm starting to fall into these narratives. What was that transitional moment like for you?
You know what the transitional moment for me was, man, actually in elementary school, I had some guys who I thought were really good friends of mine, and they had ended up getting into some bad stuff, man. I'm talking about gangs and, actually stealing from the mall and from the grocery store and things like that. And that transformative moment for me, I believe, came when I got older and I started to realize, like, wow, if those people were actually friends of mine, they wouldn't want me to participate in things that could possibly get me killed,
Mm.
things that could possibly get me arrested and do jail time, things that could possibly cause, trauma for my own family, cause trauma for me. They wouldn't be trying to get me involved in those things. And so at that point, also, like I mentioned, I had great parents, man. Parents, when you're young, they know because they've been young before, right? And they, my parents had parents, so they know, hey, they can sense whether kids are good for you or not good for you. But obviously, I'm younger. Oh, mom, dad, you can't tell me, who my friends are and things like that. But as I got older, I realized, like, hey, I don't want to be around these type of people. They're always negative. They're always talking about doing something wrong. I said, I need to step out from this because I have goals and aspirations, And as I got older, I started to realize just how valuable I am as a person, as a man, how valuable I am not only to me internally, how valuable I am to God, how valuable I am to my family. And that started to help me transition and do things different because I felt that I'm priceless, right? I'm so valuable. So I don't need to be into these things that are negative, right? Even though I make bad decisions, I might make some mistakes, that doesn't make me a bad person because I have the ability to rebound from those things and to become better. And that's the thing about being human, period, is that we should all thrive to be better people. And each day that we wake up in the morning, we have the opportunity to make decisions in order to become better. So I think over time, just realizing what people weren't good for me, stepping away from those people, being able to get involved with people who were good for me, people who had the same goals and dreams, people that wanted to see me succeed, people who supported me, doing those things and then realizing how valuable I am as a person.
All right, Chris, I'm gonna have to push back just for those people that because I believe everything that you said wholeheartedly, and I understand that, and that's a shift in mindset that we will get into it because of your book. But I think it's hard in certain environments as a especially younger environments. And I was just having a interview with a brother the other day, and we were talking about how as men we still um value the thoughts and opinions of other men and humans or whatever the case may be. So it's almost like at the barbershop, locker room talk, wherever you're at, you still are wanting to fit in with the crowd, and standing out could like make you isolated and lonely because you're not thinking like everyone else is thinking, or you don't have the same mindset or whatever the case may be. Although I know the benefits of what you just said, I'm just thinking of the practicality of survival in certain communities and where standing out could get you hurt.
Right, right. And I actually I went through that, right? Because I mentioned I was good in math and science and things like that, man. And I was getting good grades. These guys weren't getting good grades. They were always in the principal's office and things like that. And there was a period of time when I was like, okay, you know what? I want to do kind of sort of what they do, right? Because the girls liked it at that point, and I thought that being young, that oh man, it was cool to do, right? And so I understand that, because it did isolate me. Because I would get teased and bullied. Oh man, you a nerd and you wear glasses, you can get grades, whatever, whatever, whatever. And I dealt with that. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it hurt when I was younger to hear those things from people who I thought were my friends. But over time, when I developed, that mindset, and I continued to move forward in what I was doing, those guys actually realized that they didn't want to be around me either. Because Chris thought he was too good for me. Chris is doing this, Chris is doing that. So we started to just separate based on what we were focused on, right? And so at that point, I started to get involved in groups and with people who wanted to do more things, who weren't on those same things. And it was honestly just, the conservation of energy, right? Where energy doesn't change, right? It doesn't change. Energy is just maintained. And so I was attracting more positive energy. And as I attract that positive energy, that negative energy was repelled, right? Because they didn't want to be around me anymore because, oh, I made them look bad or I thought I was too good. So naturally, it honestly shifted. So it wasn't a point anymore where I was standing out in a crowd of people who were negative and didn't like me and, wanted to harm me, which I did get into a couple fights for that very reason. But I was able to transition to groups that helped me and supported me, and I would support them and help them too.
You said something so important, and it's key to anybody that's going through that transition. Is there are other communities that are available and there for you once you start to make that transition. Because we think it's like you're alone in that struggle, and it's like, no, you're not the only one that feel that way. And honestly, you're kind of the brave one, because there's other brothers that probably feel the same way, but and it sounds bad, but they don't have the courage enough to say, all right, I'm going to step out and be away from that. And if I'm being honest with you, Chris, I still battle with that. Even with this podcast, sometimes it's me like, all right, nobody really understands. I wanted to start a podcast in 2011, 2012. Podcast just kind of got popular now, but I seen like the value in having these kind of conversations. It was because my friends didn't want to, do it or wasn't down with it. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe it is sound like a corny idea. You know how much I'm kicking myself for that today.
Right, right. I feel you, no doubt.
And so there is a community, but there was a community of other podcasters that felt that same way, where I could have, if I would have dove in on what made me me, then I would have felt the confidence and enough to have that to find communities that supported my decision. And I think that's the key factor in what all you're saying.
Definitely, definitely.
I want to get into we've been talking about like mindset and shifting narratives and things like that. Talk to me about your book, Control Your Mindset to Control Your Life. I feel like that's like the perfect transition.
Oh, definitely, man. You know what? When I was younger, I didn't know what mindset was. I didn't have a clue. And over time, actually, when I went to college, that was my moment of really finding out who I was as a person because of the struggle that I went through. In college, I went through hardcore depression. I didn't want to get out of the bed. Dark cloud was over my head. I didn't care about my spiritual health. Didn't My mental health was in shambles. My emotional health was bad, man. And couple that with anxiety, like really, really bad anxiety. And these two things, depression, anxiety, I didn't know what they were because in my household, I grew up with baby boomer parents.
Mhm.
They were born in the 40s. So mental health was not a topic of discussion. And with my father and all the men that were in my life, I didn't see them cry. I didn't see them be vulnerable. I didn't see them say they struggle with anything. And so I said,
Mhm.
well, what is going on with me? And at that point, man, I was in bad shape to the point where I was about to get kicked out of college. And with depression, anxiety, going to bed was difficult. I only slept like an hour and a half, 2 hours a night because my mind was constantly racing on what if stuff. And I'm talking about what if all types of bad things happen. And I will focus on these things. And I'm thinking, what if they happen? And then I'm trying to consider how would I react to these really negative, bad things. And so at that point, I got to the point where I did consider suicide. And I was trying to figure out the way to do it because I was already in such mental pain, man. I said, you know what? I don't want to feel anything. So I had opted to go and get pills and just have a bunch of alcohol and just go out that way. And just when I was actually thinking about going to the store and doing that, man, I felt God's presence over my life. And he spoke to me through his word, man, and just let me know that everything was going to be okay. And at that point, I went and I got help. My job, actually, my internship, they offered free mental health therapy. So I got a therapist and I was going to him twice a week. And one of the things that we focused on was positive thoughts. And we also focused on having a positive mindset. We focused on how your mindset is what creates your life and who you are. And so, with that, and being able to get through those difficult times in my life and developing a better mindset, not only for dealing with challenges and overcoming challenges, but also with my goals, I said, you know what? I'm going to research this. I'm going to start to research mindset. I'm going to start to look up how the brain works and how to make my brain work for me. And then just last year, I said, you know what? All of this stuff that I've learned and I've been able to apply to my life and from my own personal experience, I think that this would be good for other people because I've always been an optimistic person and I have people to come to me and ask for advice and relationships and careers and business and things like that. And I said, you know what? A book on mindset about how to control your mindset, to control your life and live the life that you want. And I started to write the book because anything you want to do in this life is based first on your thoughts, and your mindset directs your path. And so that's the reasons why I wrote the book, to kind of give people a glimpse of, what I went through and what I did to apply the different things that I researched and experienced to help me to live the life that I'm wanting to live now, to help me to reach the goals and be successful as I am today.
Man, that's such a powerful story, and I can see why you said similarities in our journey because I can hear it too as well. And salute to you for being able to share that and be open with that because it's a lot of people that's going through that currently where they probably don't even feel confident enough to share it right now as we speak. You said something. Oh, it was a thought that came to my mind. And it visits me frequently, and I'm wondering if you have the same capacity in the same way. I feel like sometimes I know too much, and it
Mhm.
kind of it like I feel like people live in a bliss sometimes where it's better to know not know, and because they don't know, they're happier because they don't know. Whereas when you know a lot and again, engineer I'm talking to, all the mechanism, you know too much, it kind of is plaguing on you because you know so much. And it's like like a baby doesn't know certain dangers in front of them, and so they are able to be happy and just be present and enjoy certain moments because they're unknowing of the dangers around them. Do you have that feeling? Do you have that, type of mindset sometimes? And that's where you learn to put like a controller on there.
Yes, I do actually. And you know what? Being an engineer and being trained academically the way I was and just the way my mind works, I'm extremely analytical. Extremely analytical. I read a lot. I research a lot. And there are a lot of things that I know. And sometimes knowing all of those things, then my mind, my analytical brain gets to going, and I'm trying to figure out all these things and put all these pieces together. And it does sometimes plague me because I'm like, dang, you know what? Why did I look that up, man? Now I know it and I have it on my mind, and I'm gonna be pondering on it, right? I'm gonna be thinking about it. So I go through that actually a whole lot. And I think even now at this age, just the fact of, the older that you get, unfortunately, the more people that you know that pass away, unfortunately, right? And when I'm younger, I had some transitions in my life with my brother and my grandmother when I was younger, but at that time, right, I didn't really know what it was and what it entailed. And now I do, and I'm way more into my spirituality than I was before when it comes to death and things like that. So, and sometimes that plagues me. And I'll be honest with you right now, I still go to therapy every single week. I was out for a while once I got through depression, anxiety, but I still go once a week because being really in tune with my spirituality and knowing as much as I do and constantly being in a cycle of learning, sometimes that can increase my anxiety in certain areas. And so I need to go and work with my therapist to be able to help to control those things because I do know a lot, I do read a lot, and sometimes it increases the anxiety that I have.
Man, you see, at least again, know saying these things out loud, learn, make you know or allow you to know that you're not alone. Because that's something that I personally struggle with. And again, we talked off air about it, but I just had a phone call with my wife that I had to answer. Even she says that to me sometimes, where it's like, yo, you're too invested in certain things. Now, granted, it's like so you're supposed to be able to invest in, and that's how you understand it, but you can be overly invested where it causes harm to certain situations and dynamics. Does it plague your relationship in any way either?
Yes, it does actually sometimes. You know what, man? Me being extremely analytical, sometimes I'm always analytical. And that actually was causing challenges in the communication that I have with my wife, right? Because there are times when my wife would be emotional thinking about something. But then me, I'm more logical. And we were really kind of butt heads with that. And that's something that I still working through in therapy, right? Being able to kind of, Chris, you need a balance, man. There's a time when you're super analytical, right? When you're working as an engineer, that is a time use that skill set to its fullest potential. It's, sometimes in your marriage, when you're dealing with certain things with your wife, it's times to use your analytical side. But you really have to be more in tune as well with your emotional side because my wife is more emotional than she is analytical. And so I need to be able to speak her language and I need to be able to speak my language so that we can understand each other. And so that caused definitely some issues. I think at one point, it's a story, she was actually going, for me, man, I like to take the shortest path possible when driving. And my wife, on the other hand, sometimes she likes to drive and she might take a longer path or something like that. And there was one point when she took a longer path, and I kind of was like, well, babe, why did you do that? All you had to do was go here and there and take this way. You would have saved yourself like 20 or 30 minutes. What I didn't know was that she was going to visit her family.
Mm.
And she's like, well, I took that detour because I went to go visit my family. And it's okay driving a little bit longer if I'm going to visit my family because I don't spend a lot of time with them.
Mm.
So she wasn't thinking logical, analytical, less time, less distance. She was thinking, hey, I'll spend a little bit more time. I want to spend some time with my family and be intentional about that. Right. And so now I'm working through it to the point where I don't just jump in and give my analytical side. I'm doing more listening to her, in terms of our communication and being able to dial that analytical side down.
Man, I like you said, that's something that I'm still working on too. One of the mantras that the one that I just developed this year was if I can't sit, because again, podcasting is a blessing when you could talk for hours on a podcast.
Mhm.
But sometimes your wife don't want to talk for hours in an
Right.
argument. So so I had to learn that, like, yeah, if you can't come to a concise understandings within 15-20 minutes, dead the conversation and come back and revisit it. That's one that I'm working on now. And the one that carried me for a few years, and I still utilize, but I gotten better without needing to go through this checklist. It's a mental checklist of does it need to be said, because maybe what I'm thinking and what I should say doesn't need to be said. So does it need to be said? Does it need to be said right now? Like in this instance, do you have to say it right now in this manner? If it don't check that box off, it's like, all right, maybe I'll tell her later, or maybe in another time, another setting, we'll have that conversation. And then the third one is doesn't need to be said by me. I learned a lot of things don't need to be said by me. It hits differently when Chris say it or somebody else say it. And
Mhm.
so I go through that, and now it's an easier process for me. But does it need to be said? Does it need to be said right now? Does it need to be said by me? If it hit those checklists, then I get it off. But sometimes I'm like, all right, if it don't hit two or three, maybe I'll do it another time. So that's been working for me in my marriage.
Yeah, that's important, man, because sometimes with my wife, if we have a disagreement, she may not want to talk about it right now. And me, I'm analytical, man. So sometimes when we have a disagreement, we talk about it, I can go on and on and on and on and on, hitting all these different points and everything. But what you said is important because it's like, okay, Chris, she doesn't really want to talk about it right now. She's hurt, she's angry, she's upset. She wants to just take it in, just kind of get her bearings together and talk about it later. It really doesn't need to be said right now because me wanting to talk about it right now, this second, is for me because I got to get it out, right? And I wasn't considering a lot of times how she felt. So yeah, I think that's important, man.
And I listen, man. I'm learning as we grow. We learning as we grow. You
That's
brought
right.
up something earlier about grief and loss, and I'm actually starting to experience that now. And my wife, again, speaking up, was like, I don't know what it seems like. All of a sudden, just all these people is just dying all of a sudden, and all these different. And I tried to explain to her, like, I think people are always dying regardless. There's no like shift in people dying, like, of course we got COVID and such and
Right,
so
right,
on
right.
and so forth, but for the most part, people have always died. Like people don't live forever. And I'm
Exactly.
like, as kids, like our two sons right now, they're not in recognition of the people that the loved ones that we're losing right now. It doesn't impact their life as much as like us as adults because we, are very aware of it. Um, and so now I'm in that stage of what you're saying, like managing like grief and loss of like, oh, people are like dying. Like this is like a real thing. Like, and then don't even talk about the social media side of it, because that was never around where now they just got it's a page of them that's just stoic and is just sitting there where it was once active. Can you talk more about that, like grief and loss as adults and how, it's impacting us now that we are more aware that people don't live forever?
Yes, yes, definitely, man. So years ago, when I, lost people, like I lost my brother and grandmother, I was 10. And, I cried a little bit when I lost my brother, man. But as kids, we are way more resilient. We are. I just felt like as a kid, I was way more resilient. I was able to get through it. But now, as I get older, it's impacting me more because one of the things I'm more in tune with my spirituality, but I'm also more in tune with my emotions, right? And so when people pass away, I'm thinking of physically them not being here. And I'm thinking of the fact that, like you said, everybody has to go. Nobody lives for a long time. And so that can increase my anxiety, which that's one of the things I'm working on in therapy each and every week is anxiety related to grief and loss. Because when I'm losing people, I'm thinking to myself, like, one day this is going to be me. And then also on top of that, you think of, okay, I don't want, you try to control things, right? With me, one of the things I realized in therapy, I like to control a lot of stuff. And when I can't control it, it causes me challenges and issues and things like that. So with grief and loss, I can't control when people go, how they go, when they go. And it impacts me because every time that happens, I'm more in tune with the fact that this may be me. It could be one of my family members at one point in time. And it causes me to do a couple of things. One thing it causes me to do is to be more intentional about my life, the way that I'm living it, who I'm spending my time with, uh, like my family, my kids. And also it causes me to just continuously get better in my spirituality, in my relationship with God as well. And honestly, in dealing with grief and loss, it allows me to realize that, you know, nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. So there are some good things that it allows me to feel in terms of, hey, now that I'm more in recognition of this actually happening, I can make the decision to live better now. I can make the decision to savor this moment now and not fully focus on that to the point where I'm paralyzed by the thought of death and grief and loss. But it also causes me to sometimes feel saddened, because I have parents that were born in the 40s. My mom will be 79 this year. Dad just turned 75. They're dealing with a lot of different health issues as well. So for me, it allows me to be more in tune with my life and how I'm living, and being able to constantly become better and be more mindful of the moment. But it does also cause me to feel sadness as well. But one of the things I'm going over in therapy is that, not to stay there, not to stay there in feeling that sadness and that grief and loss, but to be able to recognize it and be able to work through it. And also letting go of the things that I cannot control, which is challenging. But I'm making progress over time, and I'm working through it.
And no, and one of the things that I've learned recently, and I don't know if it was in therapy or just being in this field and in this space, was it's okay to feel your feelings. Like sometimes we try to hide and push them away because we don't want to feel whatever, attachment we have to it. Like, oh, I'm because you don't want to stay there. And someone said, I don't know if it was a quote or where I heard it from, but they say feelings are visitors. You just can't let them stay. Like most of the time we let the feelings like move in and they like find a room in your house inside of you and then they just stay there, where it's like, no, they're visitors. Like they come and go, and you have to allow them to come and go, but you're allowed to let them visit and feel them and not let them stay for so long.
That's right. That's right. And that's one of the things that I'm learning too, man, is being more aware of my feelings, because for so many years I suppressed a lot of things. And once I got into therapy, I was finding out like, man, I suppressed a lot of stuff, and now this stuff is coming back out. And being aware of my feelings has become so important for me, because now that I'm aware, I can find different ways to work through them, right? So that they don't impact me on a negative basis so often. I know I feel this way about the situation. Okay, so now you feel that way. What can you do to work through it, Chris, so that you progress along the way?
You talk about the role of spirituality, and I can hear it within your story and how much of a role did it play. But just give to the people like how much spirituality played into emotional health and mental health for you.
Yes, man, it played. Matter of fact, it played the largest role in my mental health uh, journey and my emotional health, because when I was younger, I was forced to go to church. I didn't want to go, but we were there every Sunday morning, noon, and night. Right, we was there on Wednesday, sometimes on Thursday. So when I got older, I said, man, forget this. I'm not going to church no more. Can't nobody make me anymore. But being able to have a relationship with God, man, has really allowed me to deal with the negative emotions that I had, and a lot of the pessimism that I had by actually going through His Word. B, it has allowed me to feel His presence in my life when things are good, when things are bad. I'm able to feel the presence of God in my life. And uh, C, number three, it allows me to be more resilient as well, because, I'm grateful for everything God has done for me. But when I do go through a tough time, I'm able to lean on him. I'm able to put all my burdens, all my worries on him. And what I can't do, I know that he will. And in time, I will get better. Faith is a huge, faith is the foundation of my spirituality, my relationship with God. So developing that faith has allowed me to reach my goals because I had faith that they would happen. I believed in God, and I put in the work, and he guided me. And there's some things in my life, man, that I can't explain how it happened. But I just can't explain it. But I know that it was God working, and he allowed these things to happen because I had faith. I prayed to him. I thanked him. I asked him for it. And then he allowed things to happen that allowed me to be able to reach my goals. And so it's played such a huge part of my life, man. Even now, as I'm continuing to get better just with my mindset, continuously improving on my mental health and developing and applying these techniques, my spiritual foundation and God's word is what's carrying me through that. When I'm going through a tough time, having declarations based on scripture that allow me to say them out loud. I think about them, right? And it gives me that strength that I need to endure to continuously move forward.
Man, you said a powerful word, man, and it ain't even Sunday, but I'm hoping they receive this message. But one of the things that I wanted you to touch on as we begin to close out, is how do we get more black engineers into the field? You speak the language, and I love, like, for example, I always say there's two languages going on. There's a mental health language, and then there's a black community language. And hopefully my goal, one of my goals, is to combine and fuse the two. And you're doing that by having and sharing your story, but there's a part of you as well that I think a lot of young men need to hear. But you're black, but you can speak engineering language as well. So how do we up that 6% to a number where now we are invested in STEM, and make it more of a route for young black men? I'll speak of young black men, but our black community as a whole.
Right. You know what? And that's real important, man. That's one of my obligations, man, as a black engineer, is going into the community, getting the kids more interested. What I found that has been working is relating engineering to something that they love to do or something that they like. And for me, right, it was computers and learning how things work. For the younger generation now, a couple of the things is video games, man. That is huge. Relating that stuff to video games. A lot of the young guys, they like cars, and being able to take the things that they like a car, and being able to explain to them how engineering fits into that, and how if they got into this field, you could actually design a car on your own. You could make it as fast as you want to get it, and being able to take them and not just have them do the math and the science, which is important, right? Because you have to learn the theory behind it to be able to design it, but giving them hands-on stuff, taking them on tours and auto plants, and taking them to these different companies like Google and Facebook, or some local tech companies, and letting them actually walk around and talk to other people. Let them go in the lab, let them touch stuff, let them break stuff. That actually helps to expand their interest in even more. And it gets them to the point where, like, wow, yeah, I really want to do this. And not only that, one of the things that I found working in the black community and trying to get the kids more interested is that a lot of them fear math. They fear math a lot. Okay. They say, Reginald, I'm one of them. Right? They fear math, man. And I can't tell you how many times I heard, Mr. Scott, but math is just so hard. I just can't do it. And I just let them know that everything that we do in life, we have to learn to do it. We have to get better at doing it. And there are resources available to be able to help you and meet you where you are, to take you where you need to go. So it's no need to fear it. If you understand that you're not really good at math, that's okay, because you can work through that. And there are people, there are organizations that can help you get to the point where you want to get to, where you can be successful.
Man, and you transition right into the question that I was gonna go to next. As far as like you have two children, and you talked about your journey as far as your mental and emotional health, and as well as with your fathers and the men that they grew up in a certain era, and now you're growing up in a different era, and reshifting and relearning certain things. What are you implementing for your children so that they have an emotional, safe space, or space for them to be able to communicate how they're feeling, so that they don't have to repeat the cycle of not having the tools to have the certain conversations?
For me, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm letting my kids know it's okay to feel how you feel. Yeah, I'm letting them know that, because sometimes if I tell my daughter or my son that they can't do something, they get angry, right? And I'm like, okay, it's okay that you feel angry. It's okay. That's an emotion. Come on, let's talk about it. So I'm being more open about letting them express their feelings and letting them know that you don't have to suppress how you feel around me, because it's natural, and I want to be able to talk you through it. I don't want you to suppress it, because once you suppress anger for too long and you suppress sadness for too long, it can come out in other ways that may not be beneficial to you or to other people who you love and are around you. And when I was growing up, I suppressed a lot about how I feel, right? You better not let your parents know that you're angry with them. Boy, I pay the bills. I do this, I do that. You ain't got no reason being angry at me. You a kid. You can't be angry. So pretty much telling you like, oh, well, you can't feel that way. Or they told me I couldn't do something. I'm sad. Well, you better fix your face. You better not feel like there ain't no reason for you to be feeling sad about this. I said, no, bro. So it got to a point where I wasn't really able to express my feelings and how I felt. I didn't feel I had the door to do it, because I felt I would be chastised for it. And so that's one of the main things I'm doing, is I'm giving them that door and letting them know it's okay to feel how you feel, to feel certain emotions, and then let's talk about it.
Man, you dropped a lot of gems, man. I'm still working on that for my two sons, because I'm looking at him sometimes. I'm like, you little ungrateful, but because then it'd be like a little spoiled little thing too. Like, bro, I'm giving you the opportunity and you still not. So I'm still
Yep.
working on it. So I appreciate those words. Any final words before we close out, man? We talked about the book, we talked about the clothing line, and I put them up. They'll be in the video as well for you. It's on YouTube, and they'll be on the social media handles when I tag them as well. Any final thoughts around mental wellness, and any message you want to leave the people with?
I do. One of the things that I want to say is, man, there are two statistics that are out there that scientists, based on, different estimates and calculations, they estimated that there's a 1 in 400 trillion chance of you being born. And they estimate that there's a 1 in 400 quadrillion chance of you actually being conceived by your parents. And so, given those two statistics alone, everybody here right now on this earth, we are all walking miracles. We beat the odds of not only being conceived, but we beat the odds of actually being born. What does that say? That says that we are all valuable because we're here. We wouldn't be here if we weren't valuable, if we didn't have a gift, if we didn't have a purpose to lend to the world. So whenever you feel that you're not valuable, think about those two statistics and believe that you are actually a walking miracle and you are of value, and use the obstacles that you encounter in your life as an opportunity to get better. Obviously, depression was the lowest point in my life that I experienced, but I used that obstacle, A, to ask for help. A lot of people don't want to ask for help, but I use the opportunity to ask for help to get help. I use the opportunity to become more successful. I use the opportunity to look within myself and figure out, like, hey, Chris, you're stronger than what you thought you were. So you are valuable. And we're all going to go through setbacks. We're all going to have things that happen to us that we can't control, that we don't like, that are unpleasant. But use those things as opportunities to get better, right? And I'm not saying, oh, once something unpleasant happens, hey, immediately Reginald, snap out of it, man. You be no, that's not realistic. We all have different ways that we work through trauma and issues in our life, and just work through it on a day by day basis. And over time, you'll be able to get better. If you believe that you can, you put in the work to do it, and you'll get there.
Appreciate that message, Chris. On that note, make sure y'all follow, subscribe, share Chris' message with the folks, man. Let them know what's going on, what he's doing, the book, the close. I am break them stigmas, them narratives down. Make sure y'all share this message with somebody. And leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That'll help get his message a lot further. And on that note, remember that this platform has never been about a replacement to therapy. It's an alternative place where people like Chris can share therapeutic stories. Thank you for listening.